Hey, Kobe, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I think last time I saw you on a stage was about almost a decade ago.
Just about, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess, what, 2015 or 2016?
Yeah, about that. So, the team gave you a bunch of questions. I'm going to ignore them completely.
Perfect.
I want to take you back to actually pre-Tapolytics, um, out of undergrad, and then just I think after grad, you had two startups before Tapolytics. Can you explain a bit of both of them? And I think one was non-technology.
Yeah. So out of undergrad, or actually my last year of undergrad, a buddy of mine and I started, and actually I guess a buddy and a family friend of mine started a rental listing startup, trying to compete, I guess, at the time with Craigslist, and trying to do kind of like a user-generated content kind of play on it, but it didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then
Okay, go on.
And then when that didn't really go anywhere, I actually entered my family business, which is restaurants. My family owns Druxy's, if you're from Toronto and know of it. And I actually spent a bunch of time opening new locations. And within that, decided, or at least pitched my dad and uncles on creating my own concept. And we did a grilled cheese restaurant. So I opened that up.
So, well, grilled cheese. I guess let's get a round of applause for grilled cheese. Yes. I think that concept might still work. What did you learn from both those experiences?
The very first tech startup we did, we definitely didn't know what we didn't know, but mainly had this weird, like, if you build it, they will come attitude. And we just kind of like figured if we build some software and put it out there, we'd get some users. And that did not happen. Didn't happen at all. And so we definitely, when we started Tapolytics, we kind of like took that to heart and in a weird way. And I think we swung the pendulum really very aggressively and didn't do, actually just kind of completely discounted marketing and inbound and just did like very hard outbound sales. And then what I learned from the grilled cheese restaurant is that I very dislike working with family.
So did that one have a potential, but family issues came?
I mean, quick service is very tough. I mean, every business is tough. It is it's just physical. So where any business, it has mental stress, like any other physical labor, you are not only mentally stressed, but you get home just like exceedingly tired. So for a brief period of time between the grilled cheese restaurant and starting Tapolytics, I was actually at Ramen for an MBA. And everyone was complaining about how much work it was and how tired they were. And I was like, this is a vacation. I love it. I was like spending much less time just like, yeah.
And so tell me how you start Tapolytics. Like, what was the idea, inspiration? How'd you meet the team?
Yeah. So team was me and one of the original founders in that first startup. And we had joined up with two other friends that we had known for a long time. We all went to high school together. Then me and the one buddy, Aaron, we lived together in university and we hung out kind of all together in university, except for one of our co-founders who was much younger. Is the other two co-founders is their brothers. And so while I was running the grilled cheese restaurant, we would it was open late and we wouldn't have a ton of customers super late. So what we would do is just kind of hang out and, bat around some ideas. And we decided to kind of join up. And at the time we were pretty excited about like mobile apps. So we decided as a group to just try working together by just building like some mobile apps. So we built kind of like a version of Dropbox Photos early on, like very early on. And we also built kind of like a mobile game. And it was just kind of really just trying to test working together. But two of the co-founders are more technical. Me and one of the other guys, less technical. I can contribute a little bit, but it's ugly if I do. And so what we ended up doing was building some ways around kind of like at the time, the very draconian kind of like review process to be able to have the non-technical founders contribute to the mobile app kind of like while it was in review process. And that gave us the idea of creating something kind of like similar to, say, CSS for mobile, where you could like modify the look and feel of the mobile app on the fly without having to push code. So it's like the...
And then you applied to YC, same class as Tim's, I think.
Yeah, we raised some money at the same time as applying to YC, got into YC. Yeah.
So I should have asked Tim this too. Was it worth it? Not? How did YC change your perspective?
Yeah, I enjoyed the experience thoroughly. Do I think I think I maybe have a different opinion than Tim on this? That I think you can get that drive from anywhere. You can get that experience just by going down there and immersing yourself. You don't have to like be there. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but they don't gift you any sort of ability to grow or become an amazing company. They just give you a model by which you can think through problems. And yeah, you can do that anywhere.
Okay, now so that's 10 years ago. So you've been Tapolytics, or now it's called DevCycle.
Yep.
For a decade. Can ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah, go for it.
But let's I guess let's maybe take it in the first chunk. When you were known as Tapolytics, he says like it sounds like you went hardbound in sales. I think if I remember correctly, you also I think had a quick round coming out of that with Initialize, if I remember correctly.
Well, we had, so we did like a pretty massive or pretty big at the time, like friends and family kind of like seed round. And so we had raised from some people in Canada, like some big people, I guess some big like individuals with money in kind of like the finance space. And then at the time of YC, Tim will remember this, they were still allowing partners to invest, but only if you had raised enough money before coming into YC. So we had broken that threshold. So Initialize came in, but they came in as Alexis, Gary, and Aaron Harris. And then that eventually transitioned, but we also raised from Paul Buhay and Justin Kahn and Kevin Hale and a bunch of others.
Okay, so you come out as a hot YC company.
Yeah, it felt pretty good.
What were the learnings in the first few years? You come out hot. What happened? Like,
yeah, it came out pretty hot, but had no revenue. We had some users. It actually took us, I think, a year to the day of ending YC to actually get our first real dollars. It was a slog. We did outbound sales, and we were doing, it turned into basically A/B testing, and A/B testing ended up being very much kind of like an enterprise play. So got our first dollars, but those first dollars it was like $100,000, like one single contract, which is pretty good.
Well, $100,000 first contract's pretty good, but how did that become repeatable? Like, is enterprise? What do you have to learn about enterprise? So no, it didn't. But like, what can you teach the audience about enterprise sales?
Yeah, it was very, like, for us, it never felt repeatable, whether or not like it ever became, like, we never created, we struggled to create like a great I'd say process. But we were able to close some great deals. We were able to make some decent money. At the end of the day, the biggest thing for us was similar to fundraising for doing the first enterprise dollars, was just like trying to meet with everyone, trying to get like interviews, trying to understand as founders the problem sets. And yeah, the first people that signed contracts did it because it was like they believed in us. They believed in the relationship. I think that's still a big thing. Even today, it's like they're not like, people will give you a chance on big deals just because they want to work with you. Like, they don't want to, feel like it's a pain to work with the people that they're dealing with. So relationships are still a huge thing.
So relationships are important.
Yeah.
Sometime between then and now, you became a sustainable company. I imagine. So how'd you go from making one-off enterprise sales to becoming a company that actually is, I think, default live?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we did differently than, say, I keep referring back to Tim's because it's so relevant to us. But we early on, I guess, we're kind of more in like the persistent side, the default alive state, with the focus on being like sustainable. So we never really went for the fail fast motion. We always kind of, and I think at times we felt like maybe we made a mistake in that, but we're still here. So that, I guess, means that we did something right. But yeah.
Was there any key decisions or key pivotal points that changed the trajectory of the company?
Yeah, there are a few big ones, some that maybe I can touch on, others that I can't maybe go into in too much depth, but we did we made an interesting decision kind of in 2017 to go after a massive client that we won, and that definitely had ripple effects for the company.
Any other ones you can share, or is that the only one?
Well, I mean, that kind of like is a huge, like kind of trails onto the rest of this, I guess.
Okay, and then, you're going well, but it's not like you're not the, exponentially growing unicorn. How did that impact the stakeholders around you, the employees you had, investors, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, we had like some really chill investors. So they were never, and we always retained control. So we never got like a ton of pushback. We always kind of were able to do what we wanted to do. The investors we had on the board would ask questions, but they wouldn't force us into things that were maybe they didn't understand or that were maybe suboptimal. So that was kind of great. Yeah, and employees, I think, yeah, because whenever you're showing growth, even if it's not rocket ship growth, I think as long as you're fair to them, as long as you're open and honest and transparent, you can still always drive kind of a belief in the company.
Okay, and then Tapalytics is going well. Now you've got a company called DevCycle. What's the relationship between the two of them? How did this happen?
Yeah, so DevCycle is a pivot from Tapalytics. So DevCycle is, I guess, basically in a certain degree, Tapalytics 2.0. And kind of going back, it kind of starts with that large contract that you're saying was what are the pivotal moments or like the big moments. That kind of is the crux to, I guess, the original part of, even though it was like our most massive Tapalytics customer, it was kind of like the start of pivoting to DevCycle.
So tell us what the difference between Tapalytics and DevCycle is.
Yeah, so Tapalytics was focused primarily on visual A/B testing. It started off in that idea of changing anything on the fly in a mobile app kind of turned into, via our customers, visual A/B testing, and then Tapalytics grew to be multi-platform A/B testing, feature flagging, and push notifications. And DevCycle is a much more focused product. Tapalytics was focused on, say, the marketing and product side. DevCycle is focused on feature flagging and the developer.
So for people that don't know what feature flagging is, what is feature flagging?
It's just simply an ability to separate a feature release or a deploy of code to production from an actual release of features. So yeah, just think about any app you use. If they deliver a new feature, it's this idea that they can wrap it in a conditional, gradually roll it out to their users, test it in production. If there are any issues, being able to roll it back.
So why focus? What is the benefit of focusing at this point? You scaled up a bit, and it sounds like this is a much more focused product.
Yeah, I think in terms like the benefit is just you're able to apply on as a small team, and unless you are a public company, you'll always be resource constrained on people, so you can apply a lot more pressure in a smaller area than if you're broader, like Tapalytics. Because of how broad we were, we'd have like single customers using different parts of the product, and that's like becomes hard to maintain.
So prioritization is easier is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, definitely.
And has this changed your growth or your approach to the business?
I don't know if it's changed. So it's hard to say yet if it's changed growth, because we are only a couple of years in, and it's essentially, even though it's a pivot, it's like starting all over again. Nothing, can't take anything for granted, even though we try to cannibalize or like take the customers from Tapalytics and convert them into DevCycle. It's basically a brand new sale. So that'll be interesting to see. But at the end of the day, it does make a lot of things a lot more like easy.
Well, feature flags and experimentation are becoming more common. Like when I talk to most startups, they're talking about how to roll out a new feature, check if it works out. If it does, they'll go to a much higher percentage. How do you differentiate yourself from competitors?
Yeah, so I think that in and of itself is part of the like why we did DevCycle. We think like a big part of the market is kind of stuck on the A/B testing side. There was Optimizely that we were competing with on the visual A/B testing. They kind of got capped out, and they've kind of since come down. LaunchDarkly was kind of the incumbent on the feature flagging side, but as some new startups are coming up in the A/B testing side, everyone's kind of starting to continuing to focus on that area. But we kind of think that there's maybe an upside cap there. So there's a big focus on A/B testing, and there's an issue that we feel there is that exists where there's kind of a difference between the dream that A/B tests companies sell and the reality. So companies sell the idea of no code A/B testing. You don't have to use any engineers to get impact on your tests. And at the end of the day, if your engineers aren't involved, you're probably only changing, color or text, and that doesn't actually get you anywhere. So the way we differentiate is we're actually trying to, like what we saw with Taplytics was the people who used us deeply in code and their engineers were bought in were the stickiest. So that's our focus. We're focused on making great tools for developers, being deep into their workflow and trying to be sticky there.
And who your end customer, you sell to, has that changed? Was it before an enterprise sell, like CTO and out to someone in the dev team?
Well, actually, before with Taplytics, it was enterprise sale, but the buyer was probably either in product or analytics or marketing. Now it's the end user is a developer, the primary one, and the buyer is probably in engineering management. So could be a team lead, could be a VP of engineering, could be CTO.
Make the sales easier or harder?
Way easier.
Faster sales cycle?
Definitely. And we target a smaller company.
Interesting. And how's this impacted how you lead the company?
Wait, lead the company?
Yeah, like what lessons have you learned over the years? You've changed your customer. Sounds like a different sales cycle. What?
I don't know how. Well, I think at the end of the day, the biggest change of how we lead the company has been that idea of focus. We try to not do things that will spread our focus. We try to be kind of like ruthless in that as much as possible, where I think before we definitely were open to a lot more like shiny objects, let's say. Now, if a customer isn't like the right customer within the ICP, I think Jason may have been talking about that idea of a customer that came in that was the wrong customer and churned right away. We don't want that. We want to avoid that as much as possible. And so, yeah, we will say no to people and tell them outright that you're not right for us, and that's very different.
What does success look like for you? Like what type of time horizon are you working on?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think for us at this point, you've gone at it for 10 years. Maybe an IPO is still possible. Maybe a great exit is still possible. But I think for us, at least the co-founding group, the way we talk about it, success is really building something impactful. Something that like customers love, that they keep coming back to, they rely on, and ideally can have at least some level of scale to impact a larger number of clients.
And for people in the audience, how do you give them advice on to focus on what they're building? Because I think a lot of coming out of YC, a lot of what you hear in the news is about the hot company, about the thing that's scaling so quickly. And what you're showing here is really no company gets built that's sustainable, that it takes years of decades. So how do you block that noise out?
I mean, it's tough. We get asked, we don't touch AI. We did with Taplytics. We did a little bit of we're going to touch it, use LLMs to allow you to, generate ideas for A/B tests. We did that. No one used it because it's not a good feature. And then because that LLMs are so necessary, LaunchDarkly did that like 2 years after we did it. It was just like, I'm sure no one's using that. So at the end of the day, you know, I don't know, it's hard to ignore it because VCs will push you there and the market will push you there. But, you know, you got to have at least the conviction to build a good product. And if it doesn't make sense yet, like wait and figure out the use case and build the thing that actually makes sense for your customers. And I see a path. We don't have AI yet, but I'm starting to see a path with like Cursor and some things that are happening where we could fit it in, but I don't yet even see us building it in. We'd probably more so integrate with a Cursor or like a GitHub.
Well, I'll just open up my next question. Like, with the way coding supposedly changing, how's it changed how you view rolling out features and products? Do you believe like we'll have an AI, we'll get rid of humans from coding, or will it vastly reduce the number of humans in coding?
I mean, yeah, I'm not smart enough for that one. But yeah, I believe like it seems like we'll not get rid of it, get rid of humans, because I was listening to a great podcast the other day that was talking about someone, I think it was like New York Times Hard Fork, and they were talking about how a journalist followed everything that AI told her to do for 2 weeks. And she felt exceedingly boring after the 2 weeks because AI brought her towards the mean of every decision. And so, yeah, if you're just learning to code or you're super early on or you don't know this one language, I think it can bring you up to the mean really fast. But if you want to be great, I'm not positive, at least AI in the way it's designed today, where it's just a probabilistic engine, is going to make great code. So you still need the creativity to go beyond what's being seen. So yeah, I still think that there's going to be engineers. And the one thing that I think AI does for my business of AI coding becomes more prevalent is it becomes way more valuable to have a switch to be able to turn off bad code.
I'm going to ask one last question before I open to our audience. What's the one piece of advice you were given when you started Tapalytics? Or one thing you knew?
Yeah, one of the earliest things that I really appreciated when I started Tapalytics was advice around talking to a lot of other founders. And that was something that I did, like, that I really enjoyed out of NYC that I think you can replicate anywhere. What I ended up doing was, like, every week I'd go into San Francisco from the Bay Area at the earliest point of YC, and just have I had a meeting that I had, but I'd also schedule a coffee chat with another YC alumni. And just there wasn't, like, I never did any business with those people, but it was just such an interesting experience, just like talk to other founders in a capacity that was different than like the YC batch. And I just found those conversations to be amazing. And that was like a really good piece of advice someone gave, just like use and it doesn't have to be YC, it's any opportunity that you have to like just expand your footprint.
Interesting. Can I get a round of applause for Cobi? We'll open it up to the audience now. Anyone have a question?
Raise your hand nice and high. We'll come find you. Questions?
Any?
Hi, Cobi. You did excellent. I had a question. You had mentioned that you weren't very technical. Being a founder of a company now that relies heavily on a lot of software and engineers, how did you find kind of maneuvering into that space when you felt like you weren't technical? And did you rely heavily on your co-founders? And like, how do you maneuver those knowledge gaps?
The major thing for me is I've changed my role significantly over the 10 years. So it's just finding ways to contribute in important ways early on. So, and as you go, so I started off, I was the first salesperson for the company. And then once we had, I guess, our first million in ARR, I handed that off to my other co-founder. And then I transitioned into customer success, technical support, did that for a bit, then ended up managing that one massive client directly in person. And then from there transitioned into product, spent some time managing our engineering team. So it's just like, One is just doing whatever needs to be done in the moment. But two, that you need to spend the time kind of learning the things that are important to support that. So like, yeah, I didn't know much, but I taught myself SQL to be able to be doing support, taught myself enough to be able to understand what I see when I look at code, to be able to help where I need to. Yeah, now AI is kind of nice because, yeah, you can actually do some things and learn a bit more, a bit faster. But yeah, you just kind of like need to fill the gaps. And there's a lot of tools to be able to learn how to do that. But at the earliest stages, you should just be pushing on the things that you have skills on and bring value. And the value is, if you're not technical, is how do you sell?
Questions? Any more? Okay.
Thank you. So when did you decide that you were ready to go to YC? And did you have a product already, or it was just a business idea?
We applied, or not we. I applied to YC 4 times. Got in the 4th time. The first 2 times I applied with different, like 2 completely different ideas that were just ideas. Didn't get in. And then 3rd time, we applied at the idea stage of Taplytics and didn't get in. And the 4th time we applied, we had like a demo and maybe a few beta customers. But we were kind of like, mid-raise at the same time. So I don't know, it's hard to say. Like the interesting thing that I feel like is like for us, we kind of got into YC when it felt like we were going to be able to do something regardless. Like we were going to be able, like, because we were successfully raising. So it was kind of an interesting one for us.
Anyone else? We can maybe take a couple more. Okay.
Hi, thanks. So how much, if it's not confidential, how much did you raise and how much did you have to give your company away, equity?
Yeah. So we did essentially 2 raises. Like we did a pre-YC thing, then through YC and after. That was kind of like all bundled into one. And then we did an A, and I think in total it's like 7 million across all of that. And we gave away just under half.
Maybe one more question. I think I saw. Perfect.
Hi, Cobi. Great inspiring lessons. So my question is, what has been your greatest lesson in building product? Other than product should make sense, and what is available public out there?
What's the greatest
What
lesson
is your
in product?
biggest lesson about building product, other than product should make sense?
Make a product that works at the core, and it'll make your life way easier. If the core has bugs, even though you read in like everything, like move fast and break things, if the core breaks, even if you can fix it fast, that's going to be killer. The things that can break have to be at the fringes. And if it's not at the fringes that aren't the core value driver, then yeah, it's going to suck for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
On that note, can we get a round of applause?